Let's go through LeetCode 169, majority element. For this question, it gives us integer array nums. And let's find the majority element that appears more than n over 2 times. So for this question, to give us that the majority element always exists. So intuitively, what we think about that is we use a map to count to have frequency of those kind of element with its counts, and then compare the counts. And if there is one which is greater than n over 2, then return that element. But doing like that, first there is a space complexity. It asks, could you solve this question? Use linear and O1 space, right? So there is a method called more voting algorithm. And what does this do is that it has a candidate, or we call vote, right? Vote element. So we iterate these nums. If this nums equals this vote, then we have the votes for this number count should increase by 1, right? If it doesn't equal, then what we do is that we have so if doesn't equal to these nums, there are two scenarios, right? If the count already goes to 0, if a count is greater than 0, we just decrease the count, right? And if it is already goes to 0, then we set a vote to the new number and have this count equals to 1. In the end, what we get, we had a vote will be a candidate for this num, right? Because this question says that the number is always exist, so we just return this vote. But sometimes if there is no majority number, we should go through again to check whether this number appears more than half of the counts. Doing like this, right? The time complexity will be O and space will be O1. And we can prove, right? Prove this concept. That is, for example, the last, we know the vote, right? The vote will dominate, for example, in the last period, right? So that means this number at least appears more than this, right? So that there cannot have another number to be the result. The reason is that the number more than n over 2 can only be 1. The thing is that for the previous period, right, this number will not be more than half, for example, m, right? Cannot, because otherwise it will not go to vote to be 0. And for this part, right, of course, will not exceed half of this. So other numbers cannot be candidate. The only candidate will be the votes one, right? So let's write code for this. So we are going to have int vote equals, let's set this one to be integer minimal, so that it will not be any numbers in this num. And have a count equals 0, right? So what we do is that for every int num in nums, so if num equals vote, then we'll have a count increase by 1. Else, if this count is still greater than 0, right? Then we just decrease this count. Then else, that is the count equals 0, that will have vote equals and this number, and we have count equals to 0 to 1, right? In the end, we just return this vote. Sometimes, but this kind of if we doesn't give this question, that there will always exist one number, right? We should have one more check. It will be two steps. Check whether this number exists count, 2 over n over 2, right? And the Python code is very similar. So what we do is that we have a vote and count equals we can set a vote as null, right? So that it will not be or minus INF, right? So for every noun in nouns, if noun equals vote, then we'll have a count increase by 1. Else if count equals if it is greater than 0, right? If it's still greater, we still vote will not change, but we'll have count decrease by 1, right? And else we'll have we'll change the vote equals to this now and set this count as 1, right? And in the end, return vote.